Hello guys, welcome to episode 15 of the Switch Indie Fix. Today I am your host Adam as always, and today we are as always going to talk about a lot of indie news on the Nintendo Switch. And when I say a lot, I actually mean not that much. This week's been kind of a slow week for indie game news. It's a time of year with a lot of AAAs coming out. Pokemon came out this week, so I think a lot of the news has kind of been gobbled up by Pokemon, and it's also Thanksgiving and Black Friday. So yeah, there's not really too much to talk about. So today's probably going to be a slower. Today's probably going to be a shorter episode, I should say. But nevertheless, I wanted to bring one to you guys because I missed last week. So yeah, let's just get on with the show. As always, I just want to remind you that we're recording live right now on Instagram. Age of Boredom's in there telling me that he's watching now at work, but it's currently muted. So yeah, that's a good way to watch a podcast, I guess. Age of Boredom. So yeah, if you'd like to watch the live stream, you can go to instagram.com/switchindiefix and you can ask me questions, wave at me, do whatever you want to do on Instagram. It's always a cool way to kind of interact live with me, ask me some questions. Next, as always, we need your questions, so please go to switchindiefix.com/SIF podcast. This really helps out the show when you ask great questions, and I always need more. So if you can think of any Nintendo or indie game related questions, please go over to the website, that's switchindiefix.com/SIF podcast, and ask them there, and I maybe will read them out in next week's show. So as always, we'll start with section 1 of the podcast, which is the indie game news. And this week on the list there is 4 items, which is nowhere near half a baker's dozen. And the first item is, as always with indie game news, we have more physical editions coming. So number 1, Special Reserve Games will be bringing physical editions of Devolver Digital games to the Switch. So they announced this on Twitter, I think it was on Wednesday, that the Special Game Reserves are going to be bringing 3 big Devolver indie game titles to physically to the Switch. Those titles will be Minute, The Messenger, which is like the Ninja Gaiden kind of ode to Ninja Gaiden game what came out recently, and Downwell, which I believe isn't out yet on the Switch, or at least in Europe. That's some cool news as always for you physical edition fans, that you will be getting more games to collect. It's always funny when we see these kind of physical editions announced. That this time 2 years ago, people worried that there was going to be no games on the Switch for people to buy, and indie games have definitely filled that void, which is really cool. So that's again Minute, which is a really great game. I reviewed it. Sorry, just getting over a cold. If I cough a little bit, that's why. Yeah, Minute's a really awesome game that I reviewed. It's kind of like you have your life lasts 1 minute, and you have to it's like an action adventure game where you have to try and get to the end of the game within 1 minute. But you go, the more you go, you unlock new checkpoints and stuff like that, where you start your life over again. So yeah, there's some pretty awesome games there, and if you're a physical edition collector, there's definitely something in there for you. So story number 2 is that Aqua Kitty developer is bringing a new game to the Nintendo Switch. So again, Aqua Kitty DX was a game I reviewed quite a while ago on the channel. On the site. It's kind of like a 2D side-scrolling shooter where you play as a cat protecting milk mines under the ocean from like jellyfish. So yeah, it's kind of a weird game, but it was a fun game. So the developer is called Inkipod, and they announced that they're bringing one of their other games, Iron Cryptical, to the Nintendo Switch, and they are planning on a 2019 release window. So if you want to know what the game is, it's basically a twin-stick arcade dungeon shooter, and is heavily influenced by games like Smash TV and Ghosts of Goblins. And for all of you people that love co-op, there is a 4-player local co-op game. So yeah, I kind of put this on the list again because it's a slow news week, and I really liked Aqua Kitty, so I'm excited to see what they bring next, and hopefully some of you guys like Aqua Kitty too, or like these kind of old school inspired games. So Iron Cryptical might be one to keep an eye out on. And let's see, moving on to story number 3 is Best Buy offering a Hollow Knight physical bundle. So if you remember from the last show I recorded, I reported that the Hollow Knight physical edition was actually cancelled. If you remember, Team Cherry and Skybound Games kind of parted ways on their deal no one really knows why. I think Team Cherry kind of took on too much. It was too much work for Team Cherry to do, as they're still working on finishing Hollow Knight, because it's not technically finished yet. And I think Skybound Games, I personally think that they're focusing so much on finishing the Walking Dead, the Telltale Games Walking Dead series, that maybe they're kind of drawing back on other ventures. So it was kind of funny to see that news broke this week that Best Buy are offering a new Hollow Knight physical edition, but it's not what you think. So if you pay $34.99, you can pick up a digital code for the game and a plush toy of the Hollow Knight. The plush toy looks really cute. It's obviously like the protagonist, the weird kind of like he's kind of like a shell, it kind of looks like an insect. So if you wanted a gift for a Hollow Knight fan, and a Hollow Knight Switch fan more specifically, you should. This would be perfect for you if you live in the US and you're close to a Best Buy. Something a little bit different. We don't really usually see indie games getting these little kind of almost like, we see them get special editions, but not kind of in this way. Usually, when you see a special edition, it's quite expensive, and it usually comes with a map or a soundtrack or something. But I think it's kind of like a funny idea. Best Buy, maybe trying to fill the void of the Hollow Knight physical edition by producing a plush toy and selling it with a digital code. So that's something to keep an eye out if you're looking for presents for Hollow Knight fans in the run up to Christmas. And our fourth story, again, this is pretty much it. It was so bare bones this week, is that the Switch gets a new update. So since it's November, Nintendo have rolled out another system update for the Switch. The update will improve general system stability, enhance the user's experience. So I guess it's more of a general like update that makes the Switch's system software work better, which is good for everyone. I've never experienced any problems with it, but I'm sure there are some problems that they face, with things crashing or things not opening properly for other people. So it's nice to see that they're still working on it. It kind of got me thinking about, it felt like earlier this year there was such a huge cry out for the Switch to get like a new system update and a new UI, and I think that came with update number 6. People were kind of hoping that was going to be the big one that was going to change everything. People wanted menus, they wanted to change the theme of the Switch, they wanted to add their own like background art, they wanted all sorts of different things. But as always, the internet kind of gets itself worked up about something, and then when that something doesn't happen, they kind of forget about it straight away, which is fine. I think most people now are just happy that the Switch, one, kind of does what it said it was going to do, and two, that there's so many awesome games on there. This week was Pokemon. In I think 2 weeks is Smash, and throughout that time there's so many indies rolling out as well, which is pretty awesome. And the kind of final story, it's not really a story, but it's just a reminder for you guys, is that today, as of recording it, is Black Friday. So, as I'm sure you're aware, there's some pretty awesome Switch sales going on right now. I actually picked up a pair of new JoyCons because, as I'm sure any of you who listen or read any of my content know, that my left Joy-Con, it actually sticks, the joystick. So, I actually picked up a new pair today. I got the yellow ones on Amazon for £55, and it's down from 70. So I was like, that's a pretty good deal. I don't think I've seen Joy-Cons cheaper so far, and yeah, the yellow ones maybe weren't exactly the ones I wanted. I was holding out for the Pikachu and Eevee ones if they were ever released separately, but it's getting to the point now where I can't play in handheld up mode anymore because the Joy-Con sticks, and I've tried lots of different things to fix it. Hadley from Instagram, he suggested putting nail varnish or nail cleaner on it, and I did that, and that helped a little bit, but it's still stuck. Like, I think it's a mechanical failure. And yeah, I know I should have sent it back to Nintendo like probably months ago. Like, my warranty is definitely up by now. So so I had to get a new pair, and I'm looking forward to seeing the nice neon yellow too. A little bit of a change for the Switch, and yeah, it's always nice to have a spare pair of Joy-Cons lying around the house for when people come over, when friends come over. Yeah, friends. Yeah. So I also wanted to just remind you that there are two on the US and EU/UK e-stores. There are two massive sales on, and more so on the American. but also on the other stores as well, with some really awesome indies on sale. I actually made a list, so if you go onto switchindiefix.com, you'll be able to find a list. I think it's called some of the biggest indie games of the year on sale right now. So in the US e-store, you can get Celeste. I think it's 20% off. You can get The Messenger is 30% off. You can get Dead Cells, which is 20% off. You can get Hyperlight Drifter, Undertale, Shovel Knight. Like, there's so many awesome games. So if you're listening to this podcast before November the 28th, I suggest that you go over to the eShop and pick up some of these games whilst they're on sale. I can't really afford to, sadly, and because I already have too many indie games to play. But yeah, if you've been waiting out on some of these huge games, then you definitely should have a look over there. And guys, 10 minutes into the podcast and we've already finished the news. Like I said, I think this one's going to be a little bit of a shorter podcast, but that's fine. Some are shorter, some are longer. But I just wanted to remind you that the Switch Indie Fix podcast is brought to you by the Switch Indie Fix Discord server. So right now, the Discord server is kind of popping off. Not so much with new people coming. Like, we get a couple every week, but it's more active because of games like Warframe, which have just come out, and Pokemon. I know Pokemon isn't an indie game, but we have a separate chat for that, just because so many people are playing it and so many people are talking about it, which is awesome. That's really what I like to see about the Discord, is that people are starting to start things themselves, start conversations themselves. It doesn't always involve me. We also added like a rank system, so you can go on there, level up. I'm currently the highest, so yeah, I'm the king of the server right now. But it's nice to see people interacting without me, which is really cool. So if you love indie games, you love talking about indie games, and you want some other people to talk indie games about, then you should head over to switchindiefix.com/Discord to join. So section 2, as always, is the conversation portion, and I actually do have quite a lot to talk about today because I've actually played quite a lot this week. I've been off sick for a week. That's why I've managed to play so much. Two games actually, more than the others. But yeah, it's nice to kind of, have the time to sit down and actually play something. Whereas, usually during the week when I'm working, it's an hour here, an hour there. This week I've been able to dedicate a lot of times to video games. And the first one, but the first one that Age of Boredom and I have spent a lot of time playing is Warframe. So all I can say about Warframe is, what a game. If you don't know what it is, it's basically a third-person action, like hack and slash shooters set in space, where you basically play as this race called the Tenno, that, to be honest, I don't know that much about, but you basically have these like suits of armor called Warframes that give you these like kind of like space powers. So yeah, I'm playing right now as the Excalibur. Like, it's the basic edition, the one that they say everyone, new players, should start off as, because I am totally new. And yeah, so I've just kind of put some bullet points here about the game, what I think about it. So it's going to be kind of like a mini review or a first impressions. So yeah, so first off, I put that it looks really good and runs really well on the Switch, which, is always a worry for these huge, bigger online games, that they're going to come over and look like absolute crap. But I think the developers that ported the game are Panic Button, who they ported, I think, Doom and Wolfenstein. So, they've got quite like a good reputation and a good history with porting big Switch games. So I have to say, like, they've done a really good job with Warframe. Like, especially your character, like your character's textures look really good. Some of the environments look better than others. And there's also one point, I can't remember the name of the city, but there's a city on Earth you go to, and it does look bad because it's kind of like a hub and there's so many people there. And there it kind of looks like an early PlayStation 3 game, but other than that, like, actually in the levels and when you're playing, like, the game looks fantastic. To say that it's running on a Switch, and that I haven't done it, but in principle, you could pick it up and just play it handheld if you wanted to. For me, it's a perfect game because it's actually like really, really grindy. So like before I was really into my Switch, I was actually a big Destiny 2 player, and put hundreds of hours into Destiny 2 and kind of left it feeling like, I need something more. Warframe so far is definitely like scratching the itch. it's basically works on like you everything you have your Warframe, your weapons, they all have a level which all needs leveling up to level 30. So there's like plenty of stuff to work on, plenty of stuff to work towards. Plus your account has like a level 2 as well. So right now I think I'm on level my what's it called? Majesty level, I think it's called, is on level 3, and the higher you rank up, the more you get access to more blueprints, which means you can craft new weapons and more powerful weapons. So it has like a really nice loop to it. Like basically you're doing missions, saving up money, unlocking blueprints or buying blueprints, and then you're basically then grinding through the missions again to unlock items or resources that you need to basically to fill out these blueprints. And then when you have the blueprints together, you can craft it into a new weapon. Then you get the weapon, you go and run around with the weapon, get it up to level 30, and then you pretty much do the process all over and over again. What I would suggest though is that if you are a totally new player, that you kind of like have someone to Sherpa you through the games. And if you don't know what I mean by that, is like you find someone who can help you through that first little step, because the game kind of has a tutorial. Basically, it gives you like these set of very what's the word? But a set of missions that you have to do one after the other. I can't remember what the word is. What the video game word for it is. Not open world, the opposite of open world, whatever that word is. Sorry. That you have to do, and once you do that, you basically have like upgraded your ship to full capacity. So now you can use a ship to replace your mods, to build things, to upgrade your armor, to do all that sort of stuff. But then after you finish that, the game kind of like just leaves you to work out what to do. There is kind of like a story mode, but I think it is like kind of really like a story. If you really want to enjoy like a narrative perspective, you can go and do the story mode by yourself, but you don't get that many good rewards for it. So I actually had Age of Boredom. He played it a lot back. He played it a lot on PC before the Switch, and he kind of has an understanding of, okay, we need to get this thing right now, so let's go and do this mission and this mission. And I think there's 3 or 4 different types of mission types. There's like one called Defense, which is basically like a horde mode. So in the middle is a bomb or just something to protect, and then you have to survive waves of enemies. And obviously the more waves you survive, the better loot you get. There's one called Sabotage, where it's supposed to be like a stealth mission, but Warframe never ends up being stealth. But you basically break into a base, and then you have to sabotage something and get out really without being seen, but it doesn't really matter if you are seen. There's ones where I can't remember the names, but there's ones basically where you have to go and kill a certain amount of enemies on a mission. There's another one where what is it? There's it's like kind of like basically these things land on these drills land on the earth, and you have to like protect the drills from enemies, and they land all around the map, and the drills have like a certain amount of power, so you have to go kill enemies that are carrying these power packs, and then bring it back to the drill, power it up. Once the drill's extracted whatever it needs to extract, then another drill will spawn somewhere else on the map, and you have to rush there. So there's a lot of like things to do. It's like it is difficult to get into when you first start. So like I say, if you can find someone to help you, that's really good, which kind of fits in nicely with the Discord. Again, like I say, a lot of us are playing it on Discord. Age of Boredom and myself specifically are playing it a lot. I really hope everyone else downloads the game, because it's free and it's something we can all play together. So yeah, I highly suggest, if you want to get into Warframe and you need someone to play it with, go to switchindiefix.com/Discord. Plus, I actually set up a clan on Warframe. It's called Switch Indie Fix. I'm not 100% sure if you can request to join the clan, or if I have to add you to the clan. But if that sounds interesting to you, just drop me a message either on Twitter or Instagram. Or in Discord with your in-game name. Once I have your in-game name, I can send you an invitation, and then you can join the clan. So a little bit more about the actual game itself. Is that the movement of the game is the thing that stands out the most for me. Like it makes you feel, it's a space ninja game, and it makes you feel like a space ninja. And when you learn some of the higher techniques, you really, really feel like awesome and overpowered. You can basically go from, you start off with like a double jump, but when you learn how to chain a lot of the moves together, you can go from jumping from one side of the map literally to the other. Like it's so cool how the movement works in the game. And as well, the kind of gunplay is awesome. Like, there's so much feedback to it. Like, it reminds me a lot of Destiny in that respect. It's very satisfying to, there's like an enemy that has a helmet, and if you shoot its helmet, the helmet will fly off, and then you can like one shot it in the head. So it's like very satisfying. And then as well, there's like a hash and slack aspect of the game where you have a sword and you just run into enemies and spam A, and it just absolutely annihilates anything that's in front of it. So the gameplay is really cool. Like I said, the environments, some of them don't look as good as others, but it's surprising how large an open world the game feels. The level, it's all kind of level based, but the levels are huge, and there's a lot of like verticality to them, and which I really like. It kind of like it kind of opens it up even more. Plus, there's like little hidey holes that you can kind of go into, and if you're looking for loot, you can go in there, and there'll be like a locker to open up, or there'll be some pots to smash or something with really cool like resources in them. Or if you want to sneak around, if you do want to play it like as a stealth game, there's a lot of like vents you can break into, and the vents, you follow the vents, they lead you out to opposite parts of the map. So the maps are really well designed, and they're a lot of fun to play in. And like I said, loot is like a very important part of the game. You need a lot of it you need a lot of resources to craft your items. Items, or should I say, crafting is a really long process. I kind of touched on it before, but the crafting in the game is actually done in real time. So last night I crafted a gun, and it took 12 hours. So it means in real time I have to wait 12 hours until this gun is finished. And to build the gun or to build the Warframes, you have to find these blueprints. But it doesn't mean like, so one of the Warframes is called the Rhino Warframe. So I can go onto the market and buy the Rhino Warframe with my in-game credits, right? But it doesn't mean then I have this blueprint that I can just go to my workbench and build it. It means that, okay, now I can see what other blueprints I need to finish before I can actually build the Warframe. So with the Rhino one, it's like an early game. It's one of the early game Warframes. You need 3 different blueprints to find, each with their own resource list. So it's like, okay, so now I have to go and basically grind to find these 3 blueprints. Then you get them, and then you have to grind again to get the resources, and then you have to build them all, which I think they take 12 hours each. So once they're finished, then I don't think there's any other resources you need after that. You just need credits. So then you have to have enough credits to then build the Warframe, which takes, I think, 72 hours. So crafting is a very long process. It's frustrating in some ways because like right now I've already pretty much maxed out my character, and any extra XP isn't carried over to another Warframe. So right now I'm just kind of like killing stuff, and it's not really affecting me it's not benefiting me that much until I get a new Warframe. But it means, okay, so it's probably going to take me a week until I can get the next one, which is cool, but it's also a little bit frustrating. What is like kind of makes it better is that the developers haven't like bottlenecked you in crafting, so it's not like you can only craft one thing at a time. So it's like if I need 3 things for this Rhino Warframe, I can craft all 3 things at the same time. It's not like, okay, you can do one and then that takes 12 hours and then it's like, okay, that's finished now, you can do another one. Like, you can craft as much as you want, so that makes it a little bit less annoying, but still it does take a long time to craft stuff. And so far the only problems I've experienced are with kind of like the network stability. There's been times where I've been playing and like shooting the enemies and like hitting them, but you can like tell that they're not really there, like there's something missing between your Switch and the server and the characters, and it's all out of sync kind of. So you'll shoot someone and then all of a sudden they'll appear close to you and die, like weird little things like that. And some of the servers as well, like they've basically like pulled me out of a game, or me and whoever I'm playing with out of whatever game we were playing, and then put us back in. And like it's always worked better. Like after when you get put back into another server, it's it always runs a lot better. It's just you can kind of tell when it's going to happen. When enemies start freezing or when they don't disappear after you've killed them. It's it's like it kind of takes you out of the experience a little bit. And the game did crash on me once, but I think these are things what you expect from an online kind of live game in its first week. I'm hopefully the developers work on it. You know, they optimize it a bit more for the Switch. Optimize, you know, it might be Nintendo online structure as well. You never know. So other than that, though, Warframe's awesome. Like, considering it's a free game, that they could definitely charge you 60 in the state it's in now, $60 or £60 for it, because there's so much content there. Yes, it's grindy, but like if you are a Destiny 2 player and you finish now, like you finished the Forsaken, and you still don't feel satisfied by it, then this game will definitely scratch an itch for a few hours. And I think as well, it's kind of like Destiny in a way that you can play it casually. Like, you can play through all the different activities in the game, and you know, you might unlock a few Warframes, you might unlock a few weapons, or you can get like totally into it and like devote your life to it. And I hope I kind of get in the middle somewhere. I don't want to have to devote my life to it, but at least it's like an indie game, you know. So it kind of works out well for me, because I can play it without feeling guilty about spending so much time playing one game when it's not an indie game. So yeah, so that was my kind of first impressions on Warframe. I'm probably about between 10 and 15 hours into it now. So yeah, really, really like it. Really highly recommend it. And if you do pick it up and you do want to play with people, like I say, go to the Discord or join the clan, and yeah, I'll be happy to play with you. AgeBot and be happy to play with you. So the second game I've actually been playing over the last week or so is Limbo. And I actually reviewed it. The review went up today in the morning. So this kind of section is more of a review than a first impressions. If you want to read the written review, go look it up on switchindiefix.com. So yeah, a bit of past. I've never ever played Limbo. Like, I know what it is. Like, I know how kind of revolutionary it was when it first came out on Xbox Arcade. I have played Inside, though, the successor to Limbo. Like, it's not a sequel, but it's pretty much the same game set in a different setting. Like, you know, it's a 2D puzzle platformer in like a creepy world, industrial world. So overall I really liked the game. I like the atmosphere, the creepy atmosphere, and the monochromatic art style. The black and white looks really awesome. Like, that vision of the boy, his silhouette, and you know, like the spider leg coming out the side, is really kind of iconic, I think, in video games, especially in indie games. So I was really looking forward to playing the game. The puzzles themselves, I thought they were really challenging, but they weren't hard. So what I mean by that was, like, they were difficult to do, but they weren't like, you weren't hitting your head off the wall like, oh my god, I'm so stupid, why can't I work this out? A lot of them are like logic based and physics based. So, you know, if you are looking at it, I felt like if you look at it long enough, you're gonna get the solution, you know, because it is like, if you think about it, it should come to you. I'm not gonna lie, there were a few where I had to look up a YouTube walkthrough, because there were some ones where it just felt like there was nothing in the room, and I'm like, okay, I've got nothing to work with. How can I possibly solve this solution? And they were always like, when you found the answer, I was like, yeah, like, obviously that was the answer. You just needed to think about it a little bit more. But yeah, they weren't hard. It wasn't like playing like through Super Meat Boy, you know, where you finish one level and you're like, oh my god, thank god that level's over. But now you're like, oh no, now I have to do another level. It was really like, okay, this one, yeah, I walk into the room, I see what I need to do, I do it, go to the next room, and then it might be like, oh, okay, so here's 2 boxes, and I know that I need to get onto a ledge, and it's a lot about trial and error, going backwards and forwards with yourself, you know, often dying a lot, trying to work out what you're supposed to do. But yeah, it was always fun, and they were always challenging enough, but never too hard. And I kind of say in the review, like, I think it shows how different people's brains work. You know, that like, there's probably some puzzles where I got stuck on, where one of you guys could just look at it and be like, yeah, you do this. But then there was probably some puzzles that I breezed past, where another person might be like, oh, what am I supposed to do here? So yeah, I bet PlayDead have like some data stored somewhere on where people get stuck on which levels, which would be really interesting to see. However, like I said, the game focuses a lot on like this dark atmosphere. Like, it's called Limbo, and it's very like artsy in the way that it has you ask the question, well, what is the story? Like, there isn't really a story here. You're a boy obviously searching for someone, and I said in the review, like, it's called Limbo, but I don't think you're like in the literal place of limbo, like between heaven and hell. I think it's more in the sense of like you're in limbo because you're searching for this girl and you don't know if she's good or not. And I think that's what the limbo is, and that's kind of what the thing is like you're rushing to get to her to find out if she's okay. But I feel like the atmosphere gets lost after the sequence with the spider. Like, if you don't know, there's, like I said, the scene of the spider legs is really, really, really iconic. And I actually thought that the spider chased you throughout the whole game. And spoilers, he doesn't. There's after about the first 30% of the game, you lose him basically. And I kind of felt like after that, like a lot of that tension went, because when the spider was there, you could always just see like his hairy legs at the side of the screen chasing you, and you're over here doing a puzzle, and you're just thinking, God, okay, I need to be faster. I need to get here before the spider gets there. And there's like a lot of games where you think, yeah, even if the spider gets here, I'm still gonna have plenty of time. But it was really like once the spider was by you, you were dead. You were like so quick, and the deaths are so violent. But yeah, after you kind of get past him, I didn't really feel that like anxiousness anymore, or that panic or that pressure to play the game. It kind of got to the point where I was like, okay, I can look at the puzzles and I can take my time and I can try 3 or 4 times to do it and kill myself so many times. And it was kind of a little bit disappointing because what it ended up turning into was me absolutely like laughing out loud at how ridiculous the death animations are, because it's physics based. If you throw your guy into a meat shredder, then he's going to get shredded into like tiny pieces, and they're so violent and but look so funny that a lot of the game I just ended up like thinking it was hilarious towards the end, which I don't think was what Playdead were going for. And yeah, I think originally it came out in 2010, and I think you can kind of feel the age of the game. Like the character, the boy, he doesn't feel like a character. He feels like shapes put together as like almost like a crash test dummy. The way he moves, like his animation is very almost like marionette-y, and he feels like he's on strings a lot. And yeah, it's kind of shown, especially when you die, how his body kind of breaks apart into like, and it comes out as like polygons or triangles or whatever. He doesn't feel like a real character. He just feels like this like bare bones kind of test dummy almost. And as well, the age is kind of shown in how long it takes for you to respawn after a death. Like, it doesn't take forever, but it's long enough in a game where you're dying constantly that you get a bit like, oh, okay, really? Like, so if you jump in water, you die, and it's like, instead of it just resetting, it's like, okay, it shows you sinking to the bottom of wherever the water is, and then it resets, and you're like, okay, that was maybe like 15 seconds I didn't need to see. Like, I know I'm dead. I knew I was dead as soon as I did the jump. Whereas I think, in more modern games, maybe the reset's like instant, and it's like, okay, now I'm back. Okay, now I know what I need to do. I can just quickly jump over. So honestly, if you had $20 or £20 or €20 and you could only buy one 2D puzzle platformer, I would suggest that you buy Inside, because it's modern. In my opinion, the art style, even though it's very like abstract, I really like the art style. The puzzles were better too, and yeah, I just think it's a more modern game. But if you like me and you've already played Inside, and you're looking to play a bit of like indie history, because Limbo was like one of the very first blockbuster indie games on the Xbox Arcade, and I've never played it, so I was like, okay, yeah, it's on the Switch, I want to check it out. And then yeah, I do suggest it. I just don't think it's a game you need to play right away. If you were going to play another game, if you were going to play a game like Limbo, you should play Inside. And finally, the last game I've been playing, but I'm not really allowed to talk about, is called Cattails. So yeah, there's actually an embargo up until next week, so I can't really give you any impressions. But I just wanted to tell you a little bit about what the game is, because I see like a lot of interest about it on Twitter. So pretty much taken from the press release of the game, it's obviously like a cat RPG. So they say, yeah, you get to become a cat. Cattails is a unique animal simulation RPG. Hunt for food, fight invading cats, explore to gather supplies, and socialize with other cats in an expansive world, open world. Get married and raise a family of kittens, befriend your neighbours, and learn to live in the dangerous wilderness. Cattails was first released on Steam in December 1st, 2017. So the game is already on Steam. It kind of makes me wonder why there's an embargo if the game is already out. Like, I'm sure if people really wanted to know, they just and talk about the game, they play on the Steam version. But yeah, I respect that there is an embargo. The game's developed by Falcon Development, and it will be released on the Nintendo eShop on November 29th. So yeah, so if you are like a fan of these kind of cute cat games, which there seems to be more and more popping up on, more and more of them popping up on the eShop, then yeah, definitely check it out. If you like games like Stardew Valley, then yeah, Cattails might be one for you, and I'm gonna keep playing it and see how I feel about it. So yeah, and maybe report back to you next week on the podcast. And the final thing I want to speak about is YouTube. I downloaded the app, last episode I was quite down on YouTube being on the Switch. However, kind of eating some like crumb pie here. Yeah, it's great on the Switch. I didn't really consider how, putting it in dock like today, playing Warframe, just backing out of Warframe, loading up YouTube, watching Age of Boredom, play Pokemon, then be like, okay, I need to go into the kitchen and wash the dishes. Okay, I just take the Switch out of the dock, open, flick the kickstand open, and then I can watch him, get his ass kicked by Team Rocket, when I'm washing the dishes, and then it's like, okay, I'm finished now. I can go back to the living room. Boom, back in the dock, and it's back on the TV. Like, it really is awesome, and yeah, it's definitely I've definitely made a U-turn on my thoughts on YouTube, and I just wanted to share that with you guys. And what was the last thing I wanted to speak about? There was one more thing. What was it? What was the last thing? Oh yes, the last thing I wanted to speak about was right now with time recording, it's the end of November, which means there is it is the time of year for Game of the Year awards and Game of the Year choices. I plan on making my own personal Game of the Year award, some type of post, or talking about it here on the podcast. I'd love to get like a couple of other people on the podcast with me and talk about their indie game of the years. I'm only going to do indie stuff personally because it's an indie game podcast and an indie game site. But what I will be doing is making a Google form and asking my readers and listeners for their opinions on their indie game of the year. So just keep an eye out on social media for any of these forms going up. It'd be awesome if you could all vote. So I just wanted to say about that. And the last final thing is for any of you Pokemon fans, keep an eye out on social media as well for something from me about Pokemon. I'm kind of working on something. I'm still not 100% sure on what I'm going to do with it, but I've had like an idea for Pokemon content that I want to start doing. I know it doesn't really fit in with Switch Indie Fix, but I'm going to do it anyway and see what the response is, and then if this response is positive, then maybe I'll start like another thing, a side project that revolves around Pokemon. So if you are excited about Pokemon, keep an eye out on social media. Good. So actually the podcast is running at a pretty nice length now, so because I had so much to say about Warframe, which is nice. So yeah, section 3 is the final section as always, and is our question section. And once again, Charific is taking one for the team and asked me 2 questions this week. His first question is, what Nintendo games do you enjoy the most? And this is kind of like a very well-timed question for this week, because as well as playing Warframe, Limbo, Cattails, I've also been playing a lot. I think I played about 10 hours of Pokemon Let's Go Eevee, and basically my whole history with Nintendo revolves around Pokemon. Like when I was a kid, Pokemon was my first Nintendo game I ever played, Pokemon Blue. And ever since then, I've always been a fan of the series. Back in the day, I collected the Pokemon cards. I watched the anime, and since then, I pretty much every Nintendo handheld I've bought because solely of Pokemon. So yeah, I've been playing that this week, and I love Pokemon. It's just almost like comfort food for me. You know, it's the thing that I know I can just sit down and play without really having to think that much about it, because I know it so well, and I love it. And you know, there's been times where I've tried to look for alternatives to Pokemon, and there just isn't really anything out there that's so high quality and so fun. I'm really hoping that Temtem, which is in like an indie version of Pokemon, I hope that's gonna like live up to the hype. The alpha comes out next week, I think, on PC. So I'm gonna be playing about that, and I'll be talking about that next week, hopefully. But yeah, so Pokemon is definitely a game, my favorite like Nintendo property. I also loved Breath of the Wild and Zelda. It was like most of us, or most of you, it was my first Zelda game I ever played, and it really kind of like opens me up to being like, okay, I want to play like every Zelda game now, just because of how enjoyable this one, Breath of the Wild, was. And I know the other Zelda games aren't like Breath of the Wild at all, but I want to just get into that like lore and get into those like, you know, with Wind Waker and what's it called, Twilight Princess and Majora's Mask. Like I just want to kind of go through that almost, what's the word in you would say like a discography in music. I don't know what the video game term is, but I want to just play through the back catalog and just like experience those games for the first time, and I think the Switch is the perfect chance to do that. And yeah, so Mario, like I like Mario. Like I have played a lot of Mario games. Odyssey was my first 3D one, and I finished it, but I didn't really have like I didn't feel any draw to go on past the end of the story and the wedding and Bowser and stuff like that. Yeah, I enjoyed it, like I liked it, but I just don't, for these like collectathon games, I just don't really have, they just don't drive me enough to play them that I'm like, okay, I want to collect every moon. It's like, well, yeah, you know, it's cool to collect the moons and to progress the story, but for me, that was it. But yeah, you guys, I think most of you guys are bigger Nintendo fans than I are. Like, in fact, you definitely are. Like I said, that's why I mostly focus on indie game stuff on the Switch, because I don't know that much, or I don't have that much of a history with Nintendo outside of Pokemon. So yeah, if you can suggest me some titles that you think I should play. I know there's like Nintendo are doing a great job of releasing their Wii U stuff on the Switch. You know, there's Donkey Kong and Super Mario's Wii U is coming to the Switch next month, or I think in January. Sorry. So yeah, let me know what Nintendo games you think I should play. And Cherifit's second question is, do you think Nintendo will ever go back to making consoles and handhelds separately again, or will they keep making incarnations of the Switch? Basically, how long do you think the Switch will last before they move to something different? It's an interesting question. I think if they do anything, it will be that they keep, it'll still be the Switch, but they'll make like a handheld version or an at-home version. Like I think the next couple of years we're gonna see like variations on what we know of the Switch, of like something you can take portably, something that you can plug in at home. Like it's already been reported for next year that they're bringing out a new version that's gonna have a better screen, hopefully, and you know, some other updates. But I still think that version will be okay. It's one that you can put in your dock at home, take the JoyCons out, and just like our Switches right now. But then maybe the year after that, it'll start being okay. Here is like the Switch Mini, where it looks a bit like a PlayStation Vita. Like the Joy-Cons are locked, you can't take them out. And it's just a portable version of the Switch. Maybe it's a little bit cheaper. You know, Nintendo always have like a kids option, where right now, like I think for Black Friday, that you can get like a Nintendo 2DS and Mario Maker for like $99 or something like that. So like they always want a cheap option, and I think they'll eventually have one with the Switch, and it probably will be like a portable one. And then I think then on the other hand, maybe they'll produce like some like desktop kind of Switch that is just for at home. So if you want, I don't know, you just want something that looks cool to sit on or something small and cool to sit on your home entertainment system, maybe they'll also cater for people like that. But yeah, I don't know. I think for at least the next year, we're going to see a Switch as we know it now, with Joy-Cons, with switching in and out of docked mode and handheld mode. I really don't think they're gonna be like, okay, here's here's a Nintendo Switch and here's a Nintendo 4DS kind of thing. You know, I think the Switch is the way forward. The Switch is the future for Nintendo. I think they know that. Like, they still have to cater to their 3DS audience, because, you know, they sold like 120 million 3DSs. So the sales are still massive, or the software sales are still massive for games like Pokemon, you know, where they sell like 15 to 20 million for that. So, you know, Nintendo are like losing money if they don't cater to that audience too. But over the next years, that audience is going to get less and less and less, until the point where it breaks, and it's like, okay, well, you know, we have most of the people that buy 3DSs, and they've like brought the price down where they meet. So it's like okay, now this person who owns a 3DS sees the Switch has been like cheap enough and having enough games for them, and then they buy it, and then eventually, you know, we'll get to the point where it's most people have a Switch, the DS will die off, and then there'll be new incarnations of the Switch, because yeah, you know, Nintendo, they say they want to have not just a Switch for every household, but a Switch for every member of the household. So once you sold a family 4 Switches, you know, you're kind of having like the Apple problem, where you've saturated the market. There's no one else to buy your project, to buy your what's the word? Not project. To buy your item. What's the word? I just had it. It's on the tip of my tongue. Anyway, to buy a Switch. So it's like, well, what do we do? How can we keep making money off those people? Okay, let's make like a Switch 2.0 that's has a better screen, has a better battery life, has a better internal memory. And then, you know, people like me then double dip and upgrade and stuff like that. So that's kind of where I see the future of the Switch going. And the final question comes from Kool-Aid Moonwalk, over from r/NintenTube. And he asks, what indie game on the Switch is your favorite to play with a group of friends? So honestly, I was kind of thinking about this, and I was like, there's not really many indie games that I actually play with friends, because of 2 reasons. One, my indie games, usually I buy them single player experiences, because that's usually what most of them are. And 2, my friends aren't the kind of friends that would like sit down, come over for a night and play party games with me on my Switch, unfortunately. But there are a few indie games that are like couch co-op based. The first one I could think of was Brawl, which is basically like a 4-person dungeon crawler, where one of you plays the hero and 3 of you play like ghosts that tried to kill him, and whichever person kills the hero then becomes the hero, and it's about like gathering gold and trying to get as far as you can into the dungeon, and whoever gets the furthest and has the most gold wins. So that's like a really cool kind of chaotic game where these ghosts, they take they possess like items in the dungeon, so like, I don't know, like an arrow trap, and you have to try and kill whoever the hero and stuff like that, or you can possess like rats or zombies or whatever, and you go and attack. So that's like a really cool looking game, but yeah, it's only local co-op, so it's hard to play with people that have Switches, you know, like people in the community. But I did see that Nidhogg 2 just got released, and it has online multiplayer, so that's like a really awesome game too. Not so much a party game, like I think it's a two-person game where I think I talked about it in one of the other podcasts, but I can't remember. But basically, it's like you have 2 characters, one on each side of the screen, and you basically have to duel each other. And when one of you dies, you have to run to that character's side of the screen, and then another screen, you run onto another screen, and then the character will respawn. You fight whoever wins and runs onto that character's. So it's all about going like, it's like a tug of war going backwards and forwards. So that's like a really cool game, like really hectic, you know. You can either fight, or you can try and like platform over the enemies to get past them. So there's a lot of strategy to it and a lot of fun. And then yeah, it's not really a party game, but I was thinking about Warframe. You know, it's an awesome game. Well, in general, it's an awesome game, but it's also free. And you know, as long as you have Nintendo Switch Online, you can play it with your friends. And like I said earlier, like I hope it's a game people in the Discord and people in the Switch Indie Fix community download and like, because it would be so easy to play with you guys, play with everyone and have everyone play together. Until now, there's not really been that many online games that, 1, everyone has, and 2, that have more than like 4 people playing together. And I think Warframe, the teams are only of 4 anyway, but you can still, everyone can play together. You can run the same missions in teams of 4 together. If there's 8 people, you just have 2 teams. And otherwise, it was like having Splatoon and having Mario Kart 8 and having, I don't know, ARMS and games like that that not everyone has because they cost some money and that don't really run. Not that they don't run that well, but they're not really the best games to play online with friends because the matchmaking's so bad. So now like Warframe and Fortnite's another example. We're starting to get these games, but are all online, are all free and available to everyone. So it's exciting for me, and I hope the community takes to it. And that's the end of the questions and the end of the podcast. So I'd like to thank everyone for watching and listening. The podcast will go up on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, YouTube, and all other podcast services. So if you have Pocket Cast or Stitcher, it'll go up there. It doesn't go up on SoundCloud though, but most of the other podcast apps will have the Switch Indie Fix podcast on there. Remember to keep an eye out for the Game of the Year nomination. Not the nominations. The voting form for the Indie Game of the Year. I think I'm going to break it into categories like best RPG, obviously best game of the year, best maybe multiplayer game. We'll see how much work it is. But yeah, keep an eye out for that. Keep an eye out for the Pokemon thing as well. I hope you guys, if you like Pokemon, I hope you all dig it and like it. And if you do like it, please let me know, because then I'll know that I should go forward with it or not. If not, then I'm not going to bother. But if people respond to it, then yeah, I'm definitely going to go forward with whatever it is. But until then, it'll be a bit of a surprise for you. If you want to get in contact with me, Adam, hit me up on Twitter and Instagram at SwitchIndieFix, or like I said, join the Discord server at switchindiefix.com/Discord. For more reviews, including my latest review of Limbo, go to switchindiefix.com, leave me a comment and let me know what you think I should review next, or let me know what you picked up in the Black Friday sale. Like I said, I picked up some JoyCons. So thanks again for watching, guys. Have a great weekend, and I will see you soon.